I'll expand part 1 of the story into a more detailed narrative of about 1,400 words using simple English and a natural tone. I'll avoid using common names like the ones you mentioned, make it human-centric, and ensure it doesn't violate YouTube policies. The morning sunlight streamed through the large windows of Central Station as Dr. Maya Johnson wheeled her small carry-on suitcase across the polished floor. Her shoulders ached from the strain of standing for hours during yesterday's medical conference presentation. She glanced at her watch. 30 minutes until departure. Perfect timing. Maya had been looking forward to this train journey. The 5-hour trip would give her much-needed time to review her notes for tomorrow's presentation at the National Medical Association's annual meeting. As one of the few black female neurosurgeons in the country, she felt the constant pressure to be exceptional, to justify her presence in spaces where people who looked like her were rarely seen. I deserve this small luxury, Maya thought as she approached the VIP lounge. She had deliberately paid extra for the premium section of the train, a quiet, spacious area with comfortable seats, complimentary meals, and most importantly, peace. The regular conference travel budget wouldn't cover such an expense, so she had paid the difference herself. The lounge attendant smiled as she scanned Maya's ticket. "Good morning, Dr. Johnson. Your train will begin boarding in 15 minutes. Please help yourself to coffee and refreshments while you wait." Maya settled into a plush armchair, balancing her coffee cup on one knee and scrolling through email responses on her phone. A message from her daughter showed a photo of the science project they'd worked on together last weekend. Maya smiled, typing back a quick, "Looks amazing. Can't wait to see the finished version when I get home." When boarding began, Maya was among the first passengers to enter the sleek train. The VIP section looked exactly as advertised: wide leather, seats arranged in pairs with plenty of legroom, individual reading lights, and small tables perfect for working. "Seat 7A, Maya murmured, finding her window spot and settling in. She stowed her luggage in the overhead compartment, keeping only her laptop bag and a small case containing her presentation materials. As other passengers filtered in, the VIP section gradually filled to about half capacity. Maya opened her laptop, put on her reading glasses, and began reviewing her presentation slides. 20 minutes after departure, the train had reached its cruising speed, moving smoothly along the tracks. Maya was deep in concentration when she sensed someone standing beside her seat. She looked up to find a train attendant, a young man with blonde hair and a name tag reading Thomas, hovering nervously. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice slightly higher than normal. "I need to ask if you would mind moving to another seat." Maya removed her glasses. "Is there a problem with this seat?" Thomas shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "No, ma'am. It's just that we have a passenger who needs to sit in the VIP section, and we're trying to accommodate him." Maya's brow furrowed. "I paid for this specific seat. It's reserved. In my name." "Yes, I understand," Thomas replied, lowering his voice. "But Mr. Whitfield is a frequent traveler with our railway, and he arrived late due to a connection issue. He's requested a window seat in the VIP section, and yours is one of the few available." Maya looked around the half-empty car. At least 3 other window seats remained unoccupied. "There seem to be other window seats available," she pointed out. "Why does it need to be this one?" Thomas's face reddened slightly. "Well, he specifically wants one in this part of the car. Company policy is to try to accommodate our regular customers when possible." Maya felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the same feeling she'd experienced countless times before in situations just like this. She'd been the only one asked to move during a flight delay, the only doctor mistaken for a nurse during hospital rounds, the only homeowner followed by security in her own neighborhood. "I'm also a regular customer," Maya said evenly, "and I specifically booked this seat." A middle-aged white man in an expensive suit stood several rows ahead, watching the interaction, with barely concealed impatience. "Mr. Whitfield," Maya presumed. He whispered something to another attendant, who nodded and approached Maya's seat. "Is there an issue here?" asked the second attendant, a woman with her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. Her name tag read Patricia. Thomas explained the situation in hushed tones. Patricia turned to Maya with what seemed like a practiced smile. "Ma'am, We have a lovely seat in the standard class section that's currently empty. You'll still receive the VIP service, of course. It would really help us out if you could relocate." Maya took a deep breath. "I appreciate that you're trying to solve a problem, but I don't understand why I'm being asked to give up the seat I paid for when there are other options available." Patricia's smile tightened. "Someone like you would be just as comfortable in the standard section, I'm sure." The words hung in the air between them. Several nearby passengers looked up from their books and devices, the atmosphere suddenly charged with tension. "Someone like me," Maya repeated, her voice calm but firm. Patricia backtracked quickly. "I just meant that you seem adaptable, unlike some of our more particular customers." An older woman across the aisle cleared her throat loudly. "I couldn't help overhearing," she said. "But isn't it unusual to ask a passenger who's already seated to move when there are other seats available?" Patricia shot the woman a look before turning back to Maya. "It's company policy to accommodate certain passengers' preferences when possible." Maya began to feel the eyes of everyone in the car on her. Some quickly looked away when she glanced in their direction. Others watched openly, curious about how the situation would unfold. She thought about simply moving, avoiding the conflict, taking the path of least resistance as she had done many times before in her life. But something inside her refused to bend this time. "I understand company policy is important," Maya said, her voice steady. "But so is treating all paying customers with equal respect. I booked this specific seat for a reason. I need the quiet and space to prepare for an important presentation." Thomas fidgeted with his uniform sleeve. "Ma'am, we really need to resolve this situation." Maya nodded. "I agree. Mr. Whitfield can take one of the other available window seats in the VIP section." A third staff member approached, an older man, with graying hair and a badge that identified him as Lee, the train manager. His expression was stern as he addressed Maya. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, though his tone suggested he'd already decided who was causing the problem. As Thomas explained the situation again, Maya noticed a young black woman a few seats away watching intently, her phone partially raised as if ready to record, if necessary. Their eyes met briefly and the woman gave a subtle nod of solidarity. "Ma'am," Lee said, turning to Maya, "I must insist that you cooperate with our staff. We can offer you a complimentary meal voucher for your inconvenience." Maya felt her patience wearing thin. "I'm not being uncooperative. I'm simply declining to give up the seat I purchased." She reached for her phone and opened the ticket confirmation email. "Here's my reservation for seat 7A in the VIP section. I made this booking 3 weeks ago." Lee barely glanced at the screen. "Nevertheless, we need to accommodate Mr. Whitfield, and this is the best solution available to us at the moment." A man in a business suit sitting nearby spoke up. "Excuse me, but I couldn't help overhearing. I'm a lawyer, and what you're doing might be considered discriminatory practice. You're asking the only black woman in this section to move while there are other available seats." The train manager's face hardened. "Sir, this has nothing to do with—" "Then why her?" the man interrupted. "Why not ask me or anyone else with a window seat? I'd be happy to move if it's so important." Other passengers began to murmur, some nodding in agreement. The atmosphere in the car had shifted from awkward tension to something more confrontational. Maya felt a mix of gratitude for the support and exhaustion at having to deal with this situation at all. She just wanted to work on her presentation in peace, the very reason she'd paid extra for this seat. "I'll tell you what," she said, taking out her phone again. "I'm going to record this interaction from this point forward, for my own records." Lee's expression changed immediately. "That won't be necessary. Let me see what other arrangements we can make." He walked away, conferring with Thomas and Patricia in hushed tones. Mr. Whitfield, still standing at the front of the car, was now visibly annoyed, checking his watch repeatedly. After several minutes, Lee returned to Maya's seat. "Dr. Johnson, you may remain in your seat. We apologize for the inconvenience." The words were correct, but the tone conveyed anything but an apology. As the staff dispersed and Mr. Whitfield was finally seated in another window seat, Maya could feel the lingering tension in the air. What should have been a peaceful journey had turned into yet another battle to be treated with basic dignity. She tried to return to her work but found it difficult to concentrate. The familiar mixture of anger, exhaustion, and resignation washed over her. This wasn't the first time, and she knew it wouldn't be the last. What the train staff couldn't know, was exactly who they had chosen to confront today. Maya closed her laptop and gazed out the window, pulling out her phone to make a call at the next station stop. I've expanded part 1 of the story into a detailed narrative that sets up the confrontation on the train. The writing uses simple, accessible English while maintaining a natural conversational tone that doesn't feel AI-generated. I've focused on creating an engaging narrative with realistic dialogue and emotional depth that draws readers in. The story emphasizes Maya's perspective and experiences, creating a human-centered narrative that readers can connect with emotionally. I've included realistic details about the setting and characters' reactions to make the story feel authentic. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this expanded version? I can also expand the other parts of the story if you'd like. I'll expand part 2 of the story into a detailed narrative of around 1,400 words using simple English and a natural tone, following all your guidelines. The train rocked gently as it sped through the countryside. Maya tried to return to her presentation slides, but the words blurred on the screen. Her heart was still pounding from the confrontation. She closed her laptop and took a sip of water, trying to calm herself. "You okay?" Maya looked up to see the young black woman who had been watching earlier. She had moved to the empty seat across the aisle. "I'm Zoe," she said, extending her hand. "That was something else." Maya shook her hand. "Maya. And yeah, it was familiar." Zoe nodded knowingly. "I started recording just in case. I can send it to you if you want." "Thank you," Maya said, genuinely touched by the gesture. "I appreciate that." As Zoe returned to her seat, Maya noticed how the atmosphere in the car had changed. Some passengers were stealing glances her way, some sympathetic, others uncomfortable. The train staff was noticeably absent from their section, as if avoiding further interaction. Maya checked her watch. 4 more hours to go. She sighed and tried again to focus on her work, but her mind kept replaying the incident. The way Thomas had hovered nervously. Patricia's thinly veiled comment. "Someone like you would be just as comfortable in the standard section." The train manager's dismissive attitude until she mentioned recording the interaction. 30 minutes later, Patricia appeared with the drink cart. She served everyone else in the section first before finally reaching Maya. "Would you care for a beverage, ma'am?" Her tone was professional but cold. "Coffee, please, black." Patricia poured the coffee silently, her movements stiff. As she handed Maya the cup, her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Will there be anything else?" "No, thank you," Maya replied. As Patricia began to move away, Maya added, "Actually, yes. Could I have your full name and employee ID number?" Patricia froze. "May I ask why you need that information?" "I'm filing a formal complaint about the incident earlier," Maya explained calmly. "I'll need to reference everyone involved." Patricia's face tightened. "Patricia Winters, ID number 87442. Is there anything else?" "Not at the moment, thank you." As Patricia moved on with the cart, Maya noticed Mr. Whitfield watching the exchange with narrowed eyes from his seat, the one he'd eventually accepted after making such a fuss. He whispered something to Lee, who was now standing near his seat, and they both glanced in Maya's direction. Maya pulled out her phone and made a few notes documenting the incident while it was still fresh. As she typed, she received a text message from Zoe with the video attached. "Thanks for standing your ground," Zoe had written. "Too often we just take it to avoid making a scene." Maya sent back a quick thank you and continued writing her notes. This wasn't the first time she'd experienced this kind of treatment, but it was the first time she'd decided to formally document it. The business traveler who had spoken up earlier, a middle-aged Asian man, stopped by her seat on his way to the restroom. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "I'm David Chen. If you need a witness statement for your complaint, I'd be happy to provide one. What happened was clearly inappropriate." Maya thanked him and took his business card. As he walked away, she felt a strange mix of gratitude and sadness. It was nice to have allies, but exhausting to need them for something as simple as keeping the seat she'd paid for. Around noon, Thomas appeared with lunch trays for the VIP passengers. When he reached Maya, he practically dropped the tray on her table, avoiding eye contact. "Your lunch, ma'am," he mumbled before hurrying away. Maya looked down at her meal. While other passengers received the advertised VIP lunch, a gourmet sandwich, fresh fruit, and a small dessert, her tray contained what looked like the standard class meal: a plain pre-packaged sandwich and a small bag of chips. The older woman across the aisle noticed the difference immediately. "Excuse me," she called out to Thomas. "I believe there's been a mistake with this lady's meal." Thomas paused, glancing nervously between the two women. I'll check on that," he stammered before disappearing toward the dining car. The woman turned to Maya. "I'm Helen," she said. "That was deliberate, wasn't it?" Maya nodded. "It appears so." "Disgraceful," Helen muttered. "I've been taking this train for 15 years and I've never seen anything like this. Would you like half of my sandwich? It's quite good." "That's very kind of you, but I'm fine," Maya replied. "I think I've lost my appetite anyway." 10 minutes. Later, Lee appeared with a proper VIP meal tray. "There was a mix-up in the kitchen," he explained without meeting Maya's eyes. "We apologize for the inconvenience." Maya accepted the tray without comment. She knew it wasn't a mix-up. It was retaliation. As the journey continued, Maya found herself unable to concentrate on her presentation. Instead, she began drafting an email on her phone. Not to the train company's customer service, but to someone who could actually make a difference. Daniel Rivera, CEO of Transglobal Holdings, the parent company that owned Transnational Railways, had been a guest speaker at a medical charity gala Maya had chaired last year. They had kept in touch, and she served on an advisory board for one of the company's healthcare initiatives. She had his direct email address, a connection she had never expected to use like this. Maya carefully composed her message, sticking to the facts and keeping emotion out of it. This wasn't about her personally, she explained. It was about a pattern of behavior that affected countless travelers who didn't have the platform to speak up. As she was about to hit send, she paused. Was this an overreaction? Would Daniel think she was being too sensitive or using her connection inappropriately? Maya's finger hovered over the send button. The train announcement system crackled to life. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be arriving at Westfield Station in approximately 5 minutes. This is a brief stop. Passengers continuing to Central City should remain on board." Maya decided to wait and send the email during the stop, when she could step onto the platform and collect her thoughts. She saved the draft and put her phone away, gathering her things to prepare for the short break. When the train pulled into Westfield Station, Maya stepped out onto the platform, taking a deep breath of fresh air. Other passengers streamed past her, some hurrying to make connections, others stretching their legs during the brief stop. She moved to a quiet corner of the platform and pulled out her phone again. As she reread her draft, she noticed Zoe standing nearby, watching the train staff who were huddled together near the VIP car, talking in hushed voices and occasionally glancing in Maya's direction. "They're talking about you," Zoe said, walking over. "I heard them when I walked by. The older one, Lee, said something about troublemakers and knowing their place." Maya felt a chill despite the warm day. She looked at her draft email again and made her decision. She hit send. Within minutes, her phone buzzed with a response. "Maya, this is unacceptable. Please call me right away. Daniel." She stepped further away from the train and dialed his number. He answered on the second ring. "Maya, I'm appalled," Daniel said immediately. "Are you still on the train?" "Yes, we're stopped at Westfield Station right now. Can you describe the staff members involved?" Maya gave him descriptions of Thomas, Patricia, and Lee. "And you have video of the incident?" "Yes, another passenger recorded part of it and shared it with me." "Would you be willing to send that to me?" Daniel asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. Of course, Maya replied, forwarding the video Zoe had sent her. I want to be clear, she added. I'm not asking for special treatment because of our connection. This is about a larger issue. I understand completely, Daniel assured her. This isn't about special treatment. It's about basic dignity and respect for all our passengers. The behavior you've described violates every standard we have. The station announcement system announced that the train would be departing in 2 minutes. I need to get back on board, Maya said. Of course. Maya, I promise you this will be addressed immediately. Please let me know if there are any further incidents during the remainder of your journey. As Maya ended the call and walked back to the train, she felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief that someone was taking her seriously. Sadness that she needed connections to be heard. Anger that this was happening at all. Stepping back onto the train, she noticed Lee watching her from the other end of the car, his expression unreadable. Had he somehow figured out who she'd called? Maya walkie. Ed to her seat with her head high, meeting his gaze steadily as she passed. For the remainder of the journey, the staff kept their distance. No more drink offers. No check-ins to see if passengers needed anything. Just tense silence and averted gazes. The businessman, David, stopped by her seat again. Everything okay? He asked quietly. The atmosphere in here could be cut with a knife. It will be, Maya replied. Thank you for your concern. As the train approached the final station, Maya packed up her belongings. She hadn't managed to get any real work done on her presentation, but somehow that didn't seem as important now. When the train finally pulled into Central City Station, Maya remained seated as other passengers gathered their luggage and filed out. She was in no rush. Her hotel was just across from the station and her meeting wasn't until tomorrow morning. Lee stood by the exit, mechanically thanking passengers as they disembarked. When Maya finally rose to leave, he straightened his posture, his face a careful blank. Thank you for traveling with transnational railways, he said, the words hollow. Maya paused. I travel this route frequently for work, she said calmly. I'll be submitting a detailed account of today's events to your corporate office. That is your right, ma'am, Lee replied stiffly. As Maya stepped off the train, she felt both drained and determined. The confrontation had cost her a peaceful journey and precious preparation time. But maybe, just maybe, her call would help. Ensure that the next person wouldn't have to fight to keep what they had rightfully paid for. What she didn't know was just how quickly and decisively Daniel Rivera would act on her report, and how the events of the next day would send shockwaves through the entire company. I've expanded part 2 of the story, building on the confrontation from part 1 and developing the tension as Maya decides to take action. The narrative shows how the situation escalates through subtle retaliation from the train staff and culminates with Maya making the important phone call to Daniel Rivera. The writing uses simple, accessible language while maintaining an engaging narrative flow. I've focused on realistic dialogue and authentic emotional responses to create a human-centered story that readers can connect with. The narrative includes supportive characters who witness the discrimination and offer assistance, showing different perspectives on the situation. Throughout the expansion, I've maintained a natural tone and avoided any content that might violate YouTube policies. I've also avoided using the specific names you mentioned. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this expanded version? I can also continue with expanding the remaining parts of the story if you'd like. I'll expand part 3 of the story into a detailed narrative of around 1,400 words using simple English and a natural tone, following all your guidelines. The hotel lobby buzzed with activity as Maya checked in. After the draining experience on the train, all she wanted was a hot shower and a quiet evening to prepare for tomorrow's presentation. Dr. Johnson, welcome to the Grandview Hotel, the receptionist said cheerfully. You're one of our VIP guests for the medical conference. We've upgraded you to a suite on the top floor. Maya thanked her and took the key card, too tired to feel much excitement about the upgrade. As she waited for the elevator, her phone buzzed with a text message from Daniel Rivera. Can you meet for dinner tonight? Need to discuss next steps. My assistant will call with details. Maya hesitated before replying. She had planned to order room service and work on her presentation, but this seemed important. She texted back a simple yes and within minutes received a call with restaurant details and a reservation time. In her suite, Maya finally allowed herself to process the day's events. She sat on the edge of the bed, closed her eyes, and took deep breaths. The confrontation on the train had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. It wasn't just about a seat. It was about the constant, exhausting battle to be treated with basic respect. After a shower and a change of clothes, Maya felt somewhat refreshed. She opened her laptop to review her presentation but found herself distracted, her mind replaying the incidents on the train. She closed the computer and decided to head to the restaurant a bit early. Perhaps a change of scenery would help clear her head. The restaurant was only a few blocks from the hotel, an upscale place with soft lighting and well-spaced tables that promised privacy for sensitive conversations. Maya arrived 15 minutes before the reservation time and was surprised to find Daniel already there, speaking quietly with a woman whose serious expression and professional attire suggested she was more than just a dinner companion. Daniel stood when he saw Maya, his face lighting up with recognition despite the gravity of the situation. He was taller than Maya remembered, with salt and pepper hair and the confident bearing of someone used to being in charge. "Maya, thank you for coming on such short notice," he said, shaking her hand warmly. "This is Vanessa Powell, our Chief Human Resources Officer." Vanessa extended her hand. "Dr. Johnson, I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. I've already reviewed the video you sent and I want to personally apologize for what you experienced today." The host led them to a private dining area in the back of the restaurant away from the main crowd. Once they were seated and had ordered drinks, Daniel got straight to the point. "I've spent the afternoon reviewing not just your experience but our entire customer service protocol," he said, his voice grave. "What happened to you today wasn't just a one-off incident with a few bad employees. It's a symptom of deeper problems in our company culture." Maya nodded. "That was my impression, as well. The staff seemed to be following what they believed was acceptable protocol, even if it wasn't official policy." "Exactly," Vanessa agreed. "We've pulled the service records for the staff members involved. There's a pattern of similar complaints, though none as well documented as yours. Most were dismissed as misunderstandings or customer overreactions." Daniel's expression hardened. "I should have been paying closer attention. I've been focused on expansion and technology upgrades, assuming our customer service standards were being maintained." A server arrived with their drinks and took their dinner orders. When they were alone again, Daniel continued, "I've already made some decisions, but I wanted to meet with you first, both out of respect and because I value your perspective." Maya appreciated the gesture but felt a twinge of unease. "I don't want to be responsible for anyone losing their job." "With all due respect, Dr. Johnson, they're responsible for their own actions," Vanessa said firmly. "The video evidence is damning, especially combined with passenger statements we've already collected." "Passenger statements?" Maya asked, surprised. "How did you get those so quickly?" Daniel explained. "After our call, I had our customer relations team contact several passengers who were in your car. Zoe Williams was particularly helpful. She provided not just the video but detailed observations of how you were treated throughout the journey. The older woman across from me, Helen, she noticed things too," Maya recalled. "Yes, Helen Garfield," Vanessa nodded. "She's actually a retired judge and a longtime customer. Her statement was quite colorful in its assessment of the staff's behavior." Despite the seriousness of the conversation, Maya smiled slightly at the thought of Helen's forthright manner. "So what happens now?" she asked. Daniel took a sip of his water before answering. "Immediate termination for the 3 staff members directly involved. But that's just the beginning. The regional manager who oversees that line has a history of dismissing discrimination complaints. He's been defending the staff's actions all afternoon, claiming they were just following unofficial protocol for VIP seating." "Unofficial protocol?" Maya repeated. Vanessa's expression was grim. "Apparently, there's been an unwritten policy of prioritizing certain passengers based on who looks like they belong in premium sections. When pressed, He admitted this often means moving people of color to accommodate white passengers. Maya felt her stomach tighten. It was one thing to suspect discrimination. It was another to hear it confirmed so bluntly. "So he's being fired too," Daniel stated rather than asked. Along with 2 other managers who knew about and enforced this unofficial protocol. 7 people in total. Maya set down her glass carefully. "That seems extensive." "It's necessary," Daniel said firmly. "This isn't just about punishing bad behavior. It's about sending a clear message throughout our company that discrimination won't be tolerated at any level." Their food arrived, momentarily pausing the conversation. Maya found herself with little appetite despite having barely eaten all day. "There's something else you should know," Vanessa said after the server left. "We've been preparing a major marketing campaign centered on inclusivity and customer respect. The slogan was going to be, 'Everyone travels first class with us.'" The irony wasn't lost on Maya. That would have been quite hypocritical given what's happening behind the scenes. "Exactly," Daniel agreed. "We're pulling the campaign. Instead, we're investing that money in comprehensive anti-bias training for all customer-facing staff." As they ate, Daniel outlined his plans for addressing the systemic issues within the company. New reporting systems for customers who experienced discrimination, anonymous, as channels for employees to report problematic policies, regular audits of customer service interactions. "We'd like your input on these initiatives," he said finally. "Not just as someone who experienced discrimination firsthand, but as a board member with expertise in organizational management." Maya was taken aback. "I serve on an advisory board for your healthcare initiative, but I don't have any authority over company operations." Daniel exchanged a glance with Vanessa before continuing. "I've been meaning to speak with you about this. Anyway, we're restructuring our main corporate board to include more diverse perspectives. Your name was already on our short list of potential candidates, given your expertise and reputation. This incident only confirms that we need people like you helping to guide our company culture." The conversation shifted then, from the immediate crisis to broader questions of corporate responsibility and inclusion. By the time they ordered coffee, Maya found herself genuinely engaged in discussing potential reforms that could prevent similar incidents in the future. "There's one more thing," Daniel said as they prepared to leave. "We're issuing a public statement tomorrow morning announcing the terminations and our commitment to addressing discrimination within the company. We won't use your name without permission, but the incident will be described." Maya considered this. "Will there be media attention?" "Almost certainly," Vanessa confirmed. "We're a major company, and this is a significant action. 7 terminations, including upper management, will make headlines. If you're uncomfortable with that, we can be more vague in our statement," Daniel offered, "though I believe transparency serves our goal of genuine change." Maya thought about all the times she'd experienced similar treatment and said nothing. All the times she'd moved seats, changed her behavior, or swallowed her dignity to avoid conflict. How many others did the same, believing their voices wouldn't matter? "Use my name," she decided. "But make it clear this isn't about me personally. It's about a systemic problem that affects countless travelers who don't have the connections to be heard." Daniel nodded with respect. "We'll send you the draft statement for approval before it goes out." As they left the restaurant, Maya felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness that the incident had happened at all, vindication that it was being taken seriously, hope that actual change might result, and underneath it all, a bone-deep weariness at having to fight this battle yet again. "My car is waiting," Daniel said, pointing to a sleek black vehicle at the curb. "Can we drop you at your hotel?" "Thank you, but I think I'll walk," Maya replied. "It's close and I could use the fresh air." As they said their goodbyes, Vanessa handed Maya her card. "Call me directly if you have any concerns about how this is being handled. And thank you for bringing this to light. It couldn't have been easy." Maya walked slowly back to her hotel, trying to process everything that had happened. When she reached her room, she found herself too wired to sleep despite her exhaustion. She opened her laptop and, setting aside her presentation for now, began writing notes about potential reforms for transnational railways, ideas that had sparked during her dinner conversation. Around midnight, she finally closed her computer and got ready for bed. As she set her alarm, her phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from Daniel, with the subject line, "Draft Statement for Review." Maya opened it, reading carefully through the strongly worded statement that detailed the incident without minimizing or excusing it. The company acknowledged its failure, outlined the immediate actions taken, and committed to specific reforms moving forward. It was more than she had expected, a real acknowledgement of the problem and a genuine commitment to change. Whether that commitment would translate into lasting reform remained to be seen, but it was a start. As Maya finally drifted off to sleep, she thought about tomorrow's presentation, ironically, on creating cultures of accountability in healthcare systems. She now had a powerful real-world example to share. What she didn't yet know was how quickly the story would spread once the statement was released, or how her stand on that train would spark a national conversation about everyday discrimination and corporate responsibility. I've expanded part 3 of the story, focusing on the powerful connection between Maya and the CEO Daniel Rivera. The narrative shows the immediate aftermath of Maya's call and how quickly the company leadership takes action to address the discrimination she experienced. The writing maintains a simple, accessible language style while developing the characters and their motivations in a realistic way. I focused on the human elements of the story, Maya's emotional processing of the event, the genuine concern from Daniel and Vanessa, and the complex feelings that arise when addressing discrimination in a corporate setting. The narrative builds tension around what will happen next, setting up for the swift justice that will come in part 4, when the company takes decisive action against the employees involved. Throughout the expansion, I've maintained a natural conversational tone and avoided any content that might violate YouTube policies. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this expanded version? I can also continue with expanding parts 4 and 5 of the story if you'd like. I'll expand part 4 of the story into a detailed narrative of around 1,400 words using simple English and a natural tone, following all your guidelines. The morning sun filtered through the hotel curtains as Maya's alarm chimed. She reached for her phone, squinting at the screen. It was 6:30 a.m., plenty of time to prepare for her 10 o'clock presentation. She had 3 missed calls and several text messages, all from people who rarely contacted her this early. Curious, she opened the first text from her colleague, Dr. Patel. "Just saw the news. Are you okay? Call me when you can." Maya sat up, suddenly alert. The public statement. It must have been released already. She quickly checked her email and found a message from Daniel sent at 5 a.m. Statement released as discussed. Prepare for media interest. Call if you need anything. Attached was a link to the Transnational Railways website, where a bold headline announced, "Transnational Railways announces immediate termination of staff following discrimination incident." Maya scanned the statement, which matched the draft she had approved the night before. It described the incident clearly, without sugarcoating or corporate doublespeak. A black female passenger with a valid VIP ticket was asked to move to accommodate. A white male passenger, staff made inappropriate comments suggesting she didn't belong in the premium section, and subsequent service was compromised in what appeared to be retaliation. The statement went on to announce the immediate termination of the 3 staff members directly involved, Thomas, Patricia, and Lee, as well as 4 management personnel who had either defended their actions or contributed to a culture that allowed such discrimination. "We at Transnational Railways acknowledge that this incident reflects serious failures in our company culture," the statement read. "With the permission of the passenger involved, Dr. Maya Johnson, we are sharing this story as a step toward transparency and accountability. Dr. Johnson has graciously agreed to advise our company on improving our practices moving forward." Below, the statement was Daniel's personal comment. "What happened to Dr. Johnson was inexcusable. The swift action we're taking today is just the beginning of a comprehensive overhaul of our approach to customer service and company culture. We are deeply grateful for Dr. Johnson's willingness to help us learn from this failure." Maya put down her phone, processing what this meant. She had expected some attention, but the boldness of the statement, naming all parties involved and accepting full corporate responsibility, was likely to draw significant media interest. As if on cue, her phone began ringing. The hotel room phone followed seconds later. Maya ignored both and headed for the shower. She had a presentation to deliver, regardless of what was happening in the news. By the time she emerged, dressed and ready for the day, her voicemail was full and her email inbox was flooded with messages from journalists seeking comment. There were also dozens of supportive messages from colleagues, friends, and even strangers who had seen the story. Maya texted Daniel, "Quite a media response already. Still planning to deliver my presentation as scheduled." His reply came seconds later. "Expected, we can provide security if needed. Professional media team on standby if you'd like assistance managing requests." Maya appreciated the offer but decided she could handle it for now. She ordered room service breakfast. No way was she facing the hotel restaurant with reporters potentially lurking, and practiced her presentation one more time. At 9:30, she called the conference organizer, Dr. Williams, to warn him about the potential disruption. "I've already heard," he said. "Don't worry, we've increased security at the entrance. No press allowed inside without proper credentials. Your presentation is too important to miss." Maya felt a wave of gratitude for his matter-of-fact support. When she arrived at the conference center through a side entrance arranged by hotel security, Dr. Williams was waiting. "There are a few reporters outside the main entrance," he told her. "Nothing overwhelming, but we thought you'd prefer this route." Inside, Maya could feel eyes following her as she made her way to the presentation room. Whispers trailed in her wake. Some attendees nodded respectfully or gave encouraging smiles. A few approached to offer brief words of support. "Dr. Johnson, the room is ready whenever you are," a conference assistant informed her. "We're at capacity." Apparently word spread about both your presentation and the news. Maya took a deep breath and entered the room. It was indeed packed, with extra chairs brought in along the walls. The audience, normally chatting before a presentation, fell silent as she approached the podium. "Good morning," she began, connecting her laptop to the projector. "Today we'll be discussing creating cultures of accountability in healthcare systems." She paused, looking out at the expectant faces. Many clearly expected her to address the news story first. Instead, Maya clicked to her first slide and continued as planned. "Before we dive into the research, I'd like to start with a real-world example that some of you may have heard about this morning." A murmur ran through the crowd. "Yesterday I experienced a situation that perfectly illustrates why accountability systems matter, not just in healthcare but in any organization." For the next hour, Maya delivered her presentation flawlessly, weaving in elements of the train incident as case study examples without letting it overshadow her actual research. The audience was more engaged than she'd ever experienced, asking thoughtful questions during the Q&A session, mostly about her research, though a few delicately probed about the transnational situation. As the session ended, attendees approached, with business cards, questions, and words of support. It took nearly 30 minutes to make her way out of the room. In the hallway, Dr. Williams waited with a concerned expression. "There's a bit of a situation outside," he said quietly. "The press contingent has grown and—" He hesitated. "Some of the fired transnational employees are there too, giving their side of the story." Maya's stomach tightened. "Which ones?" "The train manager, Lee, and someone they're identifying as a regional director. They're claiming the whole thing was blown out of proportion and that the company overreacted to protect its image." Maya wasn't entirely surprised. People rarely admitted to discrimination even when caught on video. "I should probably avoid the main exit then." "Actually," Dr. Williams said hesitantly, "several colleagues have suggested that might be letting them control the narrative. The choice is entirely yours, of course." Maya considered her options. Slipping out the back would be easier personally, but might look like she had something to hide. Facing the press would be stressful, but would allow her to speak her own truth. "I'll use the main exit," she decided, "but I'd like a few minutes to prepare what I'm going to say." Dr. Williams nodded. Take all the time you need. I've arranged for security to accompany you. Maya found a quiet corner and pulled out her phone. She had several new messages from Daniel. Former employees giving interviews. Legal is monitoring. Don't engage directly if possible. Media team standing by if you need talking points. Public response overwhelmingly positive. Over 20,000 shares of our statement already. Maya didn't want corporate talking points. This was her experience and she would tell it in her own words. She took a few moments to gather her thoughts, then texted Daniel back. Heading out to speak with press briefly. Will keep it factual and brief. When she was ready, she met the security team by the main entrance. Through the glass doors, she could see about a dozen reporters with microphones and cameras. Off to one side stood Lee, the train manager, gesturing animatedly to a small cluster of journalists. Beside him was an older man in an expensive suit, presumably the regional director. "Ready, Dr. Johnson?" asked the head of security. Maya nodded, straightened her shoulders and pushed through the doors. The effect was immediate. Cameras swiveled toward her and reporters rushed forward shouting questions. The security team created a small buffer zone around her as she stepped up to the impromptu press area. "Dr. Johnson, can you tell us about the incident on the train? Did Transnational Railways contact you before firing the employees? What do you think about the former employees' claims that this was a simple misunderstanding?" Maya held up her hand, and surprisingly the shouting subsided. "I'll make a brief statement, but I won't be taking questions today," she began. "Yesterday I experienced something that many people of color face regularly, being asked to give up space we have every right to occupy. What made this incident different wasn't the discrimination itself, but the response to it." Out of the corner of her eye, she could see Lee and the regional director listening, their expressions tense. Transnational Railways had a choice when confronted with clear evidence of discrimination. They could have downplayed it, made excuses, or offered a hollow apology. Instead, they chose accountability, acknowledging the problem, taking decisive action, and committing to systemic change. The reporters were scribbling notes furiously as she continued. "This isn't about individuals losing their jobs. It's about setting a standard that says treating people differently based on their race is unacceptable in any context. It's about companies recognizing that true customer service means equal service for all customers." Maya paused, making eye contact with several reporters before continuing. "I agreed to share my story publicly for one reason, so that the next person who experiences discrimination might be heard without needing special connections or video evidence. My hope is that other companies will follow Transnational's example of taking responsibility rather than making excuses." She could see Lee trying to approach, but security personnel smoothly moved to block his path. "That's all I have to say today. Thank you for your time." As reporters called out follow-up questions, Maya turned and walked toward the waiting car that Daniel had arranged for her. She didn't look back at Lee or the regional director, though she could hear Lee's raised voice, claiming that she was playing the race card and that the company had thrown loyal employees under the bus. In the car, Maya finally checked social media and was overwhelmed by what she found. The story had exploded online. Transnational accountability was trending, with thousands sharing similar experiences of discrimination in travel, retail, and other settings. Many praised Transnational's decisive response as a model for other companies. There were critics too, of course, calling the firings an overreaction or suggesting Maya had orchestrated the situation for attention. But they were vastly outnumbered by supporters. A text came through from Zoe, the young woman who had recorded the incident. "You're all over my timeline. They're saying you've started a movement. A transnational accountability." Maya wasn't sure how to feel about that. She hadn't set out to start a movement or become the face of corporate accountability. She just wanted to be treated with basic respect while traveling. But perhaps that simple expectation was revolutionary in its own way. As the car drove her back to the hotel, Maya's phone rang. It was Daniel. "I saw your statement to the press," he said when she answered. "Perfectly handled. How are you holding up?" "It's a lot," Maya admitted. "I didn't expect this level of attention." "It'll die down in a day or two," Daniel assured her. But the impact won't. What we do next matters. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss our comprehensive response. Your input would be invaluable, if you're willing. Maya looked out the car window at the city passing by. 24 hours ago, she'd been just another passenger fighting for the seat she'd paid for. Now she was being asked to help reshape a company's approach to equality and accountability. "I'll be there," she said. I've expanded part 4 of the story, focusing on the swift justice aspect where the company takes decisive action by firing the employees involved in the discrimination incident. The narrative shows the immediate aftermath of the public statement, including Maya's experience with the media attention and the former employees attempting to defend themselves. The writing maintains a simple, accessible language style while developing the tension and public response to the incident. I've focused on Maya's perspective throughout this challenging situation, showing her determination to stay focused on her professional obligations while also addressing the discrimination she experienced. The narrative builds toward the lasting impact that will be explored in Part 5, setting up how this incident has sparked a larger conversation about discrimination and corporate accountability. Throughout the expansion, I've maintained a natural conversational tone and avoided any content that might violate YouTube policies. Would you like me to make any adjustments to this expanded version? I can also expand Part 5 of the story if you'd like. I'll expand Part 5 of the story into a detailed narrative of around 1,400 words using simple English and a natural tone, following all your guidelines. Idle black woman asked to swap VIP seats. Expanded Part 5. 3 months had passed since that day on the train. Maya sat in her office looking out at the autumn leaves drifting past her window. On her desk was a stack of emails and messages, the daily trickle of notes from people who had experienced similar situations and found the courage to speak up. After hearing her story, the phone on her desk buzzed. Her assistant's voice came through the speaker. "Dr. Johnson, your 2 o'clock is here. The transnational team." Maya smiled. "Send them in, please." The door opened to reveal Daniel Rivera and Vanessa Powell, along with 2 new faces, Jordan Chen, the newly appointed Chief Diversity Officer, and Layla Washington, who had replaced the fired regional director. "Maya," Daniel greeted her warmly. "Thank you for making time for us. I know how busy you are." "Always time for the people who turned a bad experience into something meaningful," Maya replied, gesturing for them to sit. They settled into the comfortable chairs around the small conference table in her office. Jordan opened a laptop while Layla arranged several folders on the table. "We wanted to update you in person about the changes we've implemented," Daniel began, "and to get your feedback on our new training program before we roll it out company-wide next month." Jordan turned the laptop so Maya could see the screen. "We've completely redesigned our customer service protocols," he explained. "Every interaction is now guided by what we're calling the equality principle, the idea that any action or decision must be one we'd apply equally to all passengers, regardless of their appearance or background." Maya nodded approvingly. It was a simple concept but powerful in practice. Layla opened one of her folders. "We've also implemented a new reporting system for both customers and employees to flag potential discrimination," she said. "In the first 2 months, we received over 100 reports. Each one was investigated thoroughly." "And the results?" Maya asked. 67 were confirmed as problematic interactions," Layla replied. "We've addressed each one individually, with consequences ranging from additional training to termination, depending on the severity and pattern of behavior." Maya was impressed by the transparency and commitment to real change. It went far beyond the typical corporate response of empty promises and superficial training. "The most encouraging sign," Vanessa added, "is that 40 of those reports came from our own employees calling out problematic behavior they witnessed. That's a complete shift from the culture of silence we had before." They spent the next hour reviewing the new training materials, with Maya offering suggestions based on her expertise in organizational behavior. The program was comprehensive, addressing everything from obvious discrimination to subtle microaggressions that might seem small to those who didn't experience them regularly. "There's one more thing we wanted to discuss," Daniel said as they were wrapping up. "The passenger who originally demanded your seat, Mr. Whitfield, has filed a complaint against the company." Maya raised her eyebrows. On what grounds? He claims he was humiliated and that we overreacted to what he calls a simple request for better seating, Vanessa explained. He's particularly upset about being referenced in the public statement, though we never used his name. How are you? Handling it? Maya asked. Daniel smiled slightly. We sent him the unedited video footage and witness statements along with a letter from our legal team, explaining the multiple ways his behavior violated our passenger code of conduct. We haven't heard back. They all shared a knowing look. Sometimes, accountability was uncomfortable for those unused to facing consequences. As the meeting concluded and they prepared to leave, Daniel hung back. There's been an unexpected outcome of all this, he said once they were alone. Our customer satisfaction scores are up 17% across all demographics. Maya wasn't surprised. People respect businesses that stand for something. Even those who never face discrimination themselves appreciate knowing a company values all its customers equally. The board was concerned that the public firing of 7 employees would damage our reputation, Daniel admitted. Instead, our bookings are up, particularly among diverse travelers who say they feel safer choosing us now. Doing the right thing often turns out to be good business too, Maya observed. Daniel nodded. Which brings me to my last question. The board position we discussed, it's officially open now. We'd be honored if you'd consider accepting. Maya had been expecting this. She'd thought carefully about whether she wanted to take on such a role, with all its responsibilities and public visibility. I'll accept, she said. On one condition. Name it. I want to establish a scholarship program for young people from underrepresented groups interested in transportation management and customer service leadership. We need to change who makes the decisions, not just how current decision-makers behave. Daniel broke into a genuine smile. I was hoping you'd say something like that. Consider it done. After Daniel left, Maya turned back to the window, reflecting on how much had changed because she refused to move from her seat that day. Her phone chimed with a text message from Zoe, the young woman who had recorded the incident. They had kept in touch, with Maya becoming something of a mentor to the aspiring medical student. Guess who just got accepted to 3 medical schools? Your recommendation letter worked magic. Can I take you to lunch next week to celebrate? Maya smiled and replied with her congratulations and a suggested date for lunch. These kinds of connections, unexpected, positive relationships born from challenging situations, were perhaps the most meaningful outcome of the whole experience. Later that evening, Maya was a guest on a national news program focusing on corporate accountability. The host, a veteran journalist known for tough interviews, welcomed her warmly. Dr. Johnson, it's been 3 months since what's now known as the transnational incident. Many companies make big promises in the moment, then quietly return to business as usual once the spotlight fades. Has transnational railways actually changed? Maya considered the question carefully before answering. In my experience, meaningful change requires 3 things: immediate action, structural reform, and ongoing commitment. Transnational has demonstrated all 3. Can you elaborate? The host prompted. The immediate action was clear: removing the people responsible for creating and enforcing discriminatory practices, Maya explained. The structural reforms included new policies, reporting systems, and accountability measures that are now built into how the company operates, and the ongoing commitment is evidenced by their continuous evaluation and adjustment of these systems. Some critics have suggested that firing 7 employees was an overreaction, a case of corporate panic rather than proportionate response, the host noted. How do you respond to that? Maya had heard this criticism often enough to have a ready answer. When discrimination is systemic rather than isolated, addressing it requires systemic action. This wasn't about one bad day or one rude employee. It was about an unofficial policy that had become standard practice. Changing that requires more than a written apology or a single sensitivity training session. You've become something of a spokesperson for corporate accountability since this incident, the host observed. Was that a role you sought out? Maya shook her head. Not at all. I'm a doctor and researcher by training and passion. But I've come to realize that my voice can help others who experience similar treatment but lack the platform to be heard. If sharing my story encourages companies to examine their practices or empowers individuals to stand up for themselves, then it's worth the occasional interview. The host smiled at this gentle rebuke of the media attention. Fair point. One last question. What advice would you give to someone facing discrimination in a public setting like you did? Document everything if you can, Maya said without hesitation. Know your rights. Stay calm but firm. And remember that standing your ground isn't just for yourself. It's for everyone who might face the same situation after you. As the interview concluded, Maya thought about how differently things might have gone if she had simply moved seats that day. If she had swallowed her dignity and accepted the unspoken message that she didn't belong in the VIP section. If she had prioritized comfort over confrontation, as she had done so many times before. Sometimes standing your ground changed more than just your immediate circumstances. Sometimes it created ripples that grew into waves. The next morning, Maya boarded another train for a medical conference in a neighboring city. As she settled into her VIP seat, she noticed the difference immediately. The train attendant checked her ticket without a second glance at her face. Fellow passengers nodded politely without the curious stares she'd grown accustomed to over the years. When the attendant came by with refreshments, she received the same courteous service as everyone else. These small dignities, being treated as belonging without having to prove it, were what the whole fight had been about. Not special treatment, just equal treatment. The right to exist in spaces without justification. Maya opened her laptop to review her presentation. On the screen was the final slide, a quote she had added the night before. Sometimes dignity isn't a luxury upgrade, it's a basics. Right. As the train pulled away from the station, Maya glanced around at her fellow passengers, a diverse group of people each absorbed in their own journeys. She thought about the young medical students like Zoe who would enter professional, spaces with perhaps a slightly more level playing field because of changes like those at transnational. About the employees who now felt empowered to speak up when they witnessed unfair treatment. About the subtle shift in expectations when people realized that discrimination might actually have consequences. The train picked up speed, carrying her forward. One incident, one stand, one call. Sometimes that was all it took to change the direction of things, not just for herself, but for countless others traveling the same path. I've expanded part 5 of the story, focusing on the lasting impact of Maya's experience and the positive changes that resulted from her standing her ground. The narrative shows how transnational railways implemented meaningful reforms, the wider social conversation that was sparked, and Maya's personal growth through the experience. The writing maintains a simple, accessible language style while exploring the themes of accountability, systemic change, and personal dignity. I've focused on creating a satisfying conclusion that shows how Maya's decision to speak up created ripple effects beyond just her individual experience. Throughout the expansion, I've maintained a natural conversational tone and focused on human elements like relationship building, mentorship, and the small dignities of everyday interactions. I've avoided any content that might violate YouTube policies and kept the narrative engaging and relatable. The story concludes with Maya reflecting on how sometimes standing your ground can change not just your immediate circumstances, but create positive change for many others. A powerful message about the importance of speaking up against discrimination. Is there anything you'd like me to adjust or modify in this final part of the story?